So this is construction cost estimating, COSC 602. So it's the inaugural class. This is the first class of the first semester. So this is as green as it gets. So I've started my recording. So let's talk quickly about the agenda for today. One is everybody should have participated in an introduction before we started. We'll have a very quick, semi-high level course overview, and then we'll go into today's topics, and then we'll finish with a few reminders. And we'll follow this general agenda every week that we meet. Just to give you a background of who I am and give you an idea of where I come from, I'm actually a graduate of the Construction Science College from back in 1988. The college itself, as you know, is or I suspect you know, is focused primarily on building construction and residential, more commercial residential. I have an industrial background. As soon as I graduated, I went to work for Brown and Root, which is today known as KBR. And I've rotated through Fluor. I had 16 and a half years with Fluor, Day & Zimmerman, Cajun Industries. I'm now currently with Black & Veatch, EPC company that's based out of Kansas City, but they're a competitor of Fluor and Bechtel and Kiewit and companies of that nature. But I also have 8 years in government work. A good portion of that was spent overseas supporting military activities. And then I do have 2 years of commercial residential activity as well. But the vast majority of my background is industrial, power plants, chemical plants, refineries, things of that nature, offshore platforms. And this class is actually bent in that direction. So hopefully that was made known to you before you started. But we will touch on some building construction activities as well. The course outcomes that we're aiming for, one is to explain how estimates are assembled and the role of an estimate in a project lifecycle. Also, we're going to look at how to analyze, interpret, and determine appropriate material quantification. We are going to review plans. We're going to look at some piping isometrics, steel drawings, and various equipment material lists, but we're not going to dive heavily into that. This course is not really intended to help you become an estimator. My expectation is that most of you are actually moving into or already into project management or something of that affiliation. So what we're going to do is touch on the philosophies, the methodologies, and what would be good estimating practices. And then we're going to close out talking about risk and application of risk. A&M does not have does not have the use of at risk. So what I will present to you are a couple of manual methods that I've used in the past to assess risk without running a full Monte Carlo. And then at the end, we'll close out the semester discussing how a project manager should look at the estimating process and what the implications of your decisions will be on the outcome of this process. Because as either a proposal manager, a project manager, or a different manager, maybe even construction manager that has influence over this process, as you make decisions and drive the process in a particular direction, you're going to impact the outcome. You're going to impact the quality, and those results then will impact the job that you're managing from a profitable perspective. So that's the focus of what we're going to address is, as in bullet 3 here, we're also going to talk about direct field craft labor hours, building crew mixes, building wage rates, applying production rates and productivity factors, as well as doing the takeoff, as we mentioned in 2. But the overall is not the make you an estimator, but to prepare you to be looking over estimators' shoulders and making judgments about what they're doing as it impacts the job you're managing. So it's, well, I'll get to the next question here in a couple of minutes. We're also going to interpret pricing, talk about pricing and how we want to apply that to quantities. But even more than that, because that particular process is not extremely difficult, but it's understanding what the implications of that pricing is going to have on the quality of the estimate, as well as trying to make some determination of what that pricing is. And we'll also talk about indirect costs, other costs, and markups. Then we'll also, and actually earlier on, we'll discuss and describe different estimating systems, techniques, and we'll talk about key quantities and cost ratios. So there's in some ways I can't get too deep because I would be giving away proprietary metrics of the companies that I've worked for. But on the other hand, I do want to try to dive into it in a general way so that you do walk away with some idea of what are reasonable, as much key ratios as well as cost ratios to be considering and thinking about during the analysis process. So again, to kind of recap, the main focus of how this course is built is I'm assuming that you're moving into a management role of some kind, and that you, during that management role, will have impact on the estimating process. So we want, this course is designed to familiarize you with that estimating process and the impacts of your decisions and how it impacts what they will do, which will then in turn impact your the success of your project that you're managing. So you'll stop, maybe provide more leeway or provide more direction to the proposal process in general, so that they will produce a better product and in turn will enable you to have a more successful project in the end. We will also, and these bullets, I don't really clarify it in too much depth, but we'll also talk about discussions of each one of the departments that feed the estimating process. So as much as we're going to talk about estimating, we're also going to talk about proposals in general, because most estimates aren't just a number developed that gets handed over. It's part of a proposal or a bid cycle that you are submitting to win work, unless it's an internal check estimate or internal validation estimate. In that case, it wouldn't be part of a proposal. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so how's the course structured? We're going to have 11 modules. So if you're looking at the syllabus, you'll realize that we actually have 14 weeks. The reason there's 11 modules instead of 14 is that module 4, which is addresses quantification, that module will actually take up 4 classes or 4 weeks of focus. So the 11 modules are going to spread out over the 14 weeks. We don't have a 15 week because this is a project focused class. And so there's not a comprehensive final or anything of that nature. It's going to be broken out into 8 tasks or what has been labeled the projects here. There will be 6 quizzes and then 5 reflections. So the tasks are going to be an effort where you're going to quantify or build something in a spreadsheet. The quizzes, there won't be a task associated with it. What you will do is read through the module and then take a quiz at the end of the appropriate class, which usually will start out being a Thursday and it will rotate into a Tuesday after our fall break. The reflections will be due on the same day that the task is due. And it's basically, you'll write a short paragraph, half a page worth, something of that nature, that reflects upon what you learned and what you felt was important about what you read and participated in. So the way the course will flow is the first class of each module will actually be a lecture like we have today, and it will be PowerPoint based. The presentations are going to be primarily derived from the text that you're provided, but it's not going to be an exact mirror image of what has been written and provided to you. It will be close, but it will not be identical. So I will add comments into the presentations that I didn't write into the modules, and vice versa. So they should complement each other and overlap, but they won't be identical. Now, the second class will be a self-directed, self-taught session. So in other words, we'll lecture today, and then Thursday, I'll be linked to Zoom. Zoom will be open, but you're free to read through, ask no questions, read through and ask questions, bring up discussion points. And what I'll do is I will answer questions, and we'll talk through issues as a first come, first served basis. So I think some of the professors will keep things kind of locked away, and you have to like dial in one-on-one, but we'll just keep this as an open forum. So if someone has a question, you can hear the question and you can hear the debate. Well, it'll be an open forum, but it'll be self-directed. And if you have no questions, then there are no questions. So that'll be great. I will say now that next Thursday, that self-directed class will not actually occur. Maybe we can call it canceled, but I have a pre-engagement that I need to attend that day, and so I can't make it. And then I know there's a potential for me to possibly miss an entire week coming up because there's a potential trip to the UK that I have to make because we have a project in central United Kingdom that we're currently bidding and working on, and I may have to make a field trip over there. If that trip gets canceled, then everything's still on and we're moving forward. So I apologize for any inconvenience, but I have to take care of work from that standpoint. The October 9th and 10th is our fall break. So those 2 days, there are no classes. And so what will happen is right now we'll lecture on Tuesday. We'll have an open forum on Thursday. After that happens, it flips to where Thursday becomes the lecture and the following Tuesday becomes our open forum until Thanksgiving arrives. And then it flips back again for that last week, for that 14th week. So I think in some ways it seems confusing, but it's the way the days fall that's driving that. I'm going to do my best to cover all slides during the class and discuss each one of them. But if I get a little long-winded or I rabbit trail and I don't cover every one of them, then you will be provided all of these PowerPoint slides. You get a PDF of it, and you can go through and you can look at them, write notes on them, ask questions about them as well as the reading. There may be a few things that will adjust as we go. Currently, right now, the only thing that I think that is likely to adjust is actually the task content. I'm still actually in the process of building the tasks right now. But I've just very recently finished writing, pulling together the presentations for the mods that address the module write-ups that you have for the class. But for details on when things are due, refer back to the syllabus schedule, and everything submits through Canvas. All the dates of the quizzes, all the submission dates in Canvas should align with the syllabus schedule. If you see that I have missed one, please, raise your hand, send me an email, send me a text, I think everybody has my phone number from the syllabus, and I'll look into it and I'll fix it because, I work full time and I've got 3 classes. So I occasionally miss something. It's just it's quite a challenge to keep up at times. Okay, so today what we're going to try to talk about, because we gave you the overall course focus for today's activities. We want to define what an estimate is, define various characteristics and aspects of an estimate, talk about estimate classes or the classes of estimates and the methodologies that go with those estimates. In the process, I'll also dive into a little bit about the engineering phases that drive the estimate classes and methodologies. And then, we'll talk about a few key terms as towards the end if we get to that part. But before we get started, the tasks are not an individual activity. The tasks are going to be a team activity. The quizzes and the reflections will be an individual activity. So there's currently 25 people in the class. We have 23, it looks like, that have joined. So we have all but 2 people at this moment. So there will be 25 quizzes, 25 reflections, but there will only be 5 tasks that I receive each time. So I know that I posted an announcement earlier. Has everybody had an opportunity to reach out and meet other people within the class? Let's take 5 to 10 minutes to do that. If it gets to be a point where we can't quite get there within, the 5 to 10 minute period, then we can more or less postpone it, because the first 3 classes are going to be read and take a quiz. It's not going to be till the 4th class that we actually have a task that needs to be tackled. So we have a class or 2 to sort it all out. It'd be nice if we could sort it out now, but if we can't get there without some additional discussions after classes, then we'll let it take its course. And once it drops us, we'll consider it wrapped up, and then we'll all log back in. Does anybody in the class have industrial experience, or is everybody more or less building construction focused?
I'm actually infrastructure and industrial only. I maybe have like 2 years in my many decades of experience in housing, development, whatever, but it's mostly water, wastewater, and transportation programs, heavy construction.
Okay. So you're used to using a lot of unit rate estimating, probably.
Yes, except in Army Corps of Engineers, as you all know, it's all freaking lump sum with risk in it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, before I'm with Black, I mentioned earlier, I'm with Black & Veatch now. Been with Black & Veatch about 2 years now. The previous 2 years before that, I managed the estimating department for Cajun Industries, and smaller general contractor type company. And everything we did was lump sum. But again, it was our main focus was equipment, steel, and pipe. And then we subcontracted out the earthwork, concrete work, and the E&I work, and the soft crafts. And we did not put contingency on anything. The owners thought that was just going to price us out, and we should have it estimated to the T. So we were always on the bubble, hoping that we had enough to cover everything, all the unknowns.
So, well, the thing about lump sum is that you have to be very careful, and it's like flip coin. It either makes a lot of money or you break even. And if you're really, really crazy, you lose money.
Yes. Oh, we normally made money, but sometimes it came in really close. And I understand that since I left there, they've had several losing quite a bit of money. So, but if we didn't make the money that was planned, they were about as upset with us as if we had lost. We're trying to explain to them that it's an estimate, right? So as long as you're making money, if we're hoping for 10%, but we still got. So if anybody does miss a class, there will be a recording out there for you to access after class if you want to go back. To give you a little bit of a backup, these are the words that I was reading earlier about what is an estimate, what is the estimating process that will be in the slide when you get it. These are the people working with estimating, the documents, some of the documents, but not all the documents that they provide us. And there is module 12. It's actually saved in the Getting Started module. There's a list of vocabulary words, and they're really more acronyms and the definitions of those acronyms. I recommend that you look at that and read through it, and because they could show up on any of the quizzes. Now, each one of the quizzes is 20 questions. They're not extremely long, and I didn't try to make them extremely complicated, but it should challenge you a little bit on how everything functions. So cost elements. So there's a difference between the cost elements that general industry recognizes and what the government public work, what they recognize. And typically, regular industry would recognize labor, materials, subcontracts, and indirects. But the government will recognize labor, materials, subcontracts, other direct costs, and then indirects. So the difference is that other direct costs that the government likes to quantify things in really is part of what we would consider indirects in the private sector. And then, but the government, the indirects that they identify are pool costs. So for industry, and hopefully everybody already has a feel for this, your field staff is an indirect cost. Your construction equipment is an indirect cost. Your temporary facilities and your temporary construction services, drinking water, porta-johns, dust control, things of that nature are all indirect costs. Now, some companies, they will build burdened rates, and then the direct field cost includes burdened rates. And so burdens and benefits are part of the directs. Other companies, they will apply bare rates to the direct craft, and the burdens and benefits are part of the indirects. It's still covered, but the definition it varies a little bit. But when you move to the government, construction equipment, indirect temporary facilities, things of that nature become other direct costs, and what they put in indirects are just the pool costs, like I said before, and that ends up being your burdens and benefits. And literally, they're taking that cost, it goes into a general bucket, and then as people take time off and hit PTO, it comes out of that pool of cost. When people go to the doctor and they use their insurance, then that burden and benefit pool cost, that cost gets pulled out of there. Whenever the government takes the taxes, or they send the unemployment funds to the agency, or the agency that's taking care of workman's comp, they send the money there. It gets pulled out of a pool cost that's sitting in the accounting system. That's what's in the indirect costs as far as the government's concerned. The reason I make a point of that is that if you end up working with the government, I always had to break things out in these 5 cost elements, but I only deal with 4 of them whenever I submit something to ExxonMobil or Chevron or whoever else we're dealing with. Today we're dealing with a lot of new technology type companies, hydrogen plants and things of that nature. They only want to see the 4 as well.
Can I ask a question? Quick question
Yes.
regarding the indirect cost, and I might have a little different experience. The term government, federal is different than state and different than city and county
Correct.
when it comes to, okay.
Yes.
Just make sure that I haven't done estimating in a long time, so the world didn't change that much.
No, you're exactly right. And now a lot of times what I'll say is I'll say like government and municipal, and I'll kind of separate the two because the state and local government authorities typically I put under municipal, but right now I'm just talking generically. Any of the work that I've done in the past, either federal or state, I've actually never worked on local. I haven't done anything for a local facility, but they always saw things in these 5 breakouts. The primary difference is when you submit federal, you have to submit under the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulations.
Right.
And man, that just really complicates things even further. Whenever you're dealing with a state or municipal, you're only dealing with their local. The FAR doesn't apply anymore that I'm aware of. Yeah. So no, good question. Good point. Now, when you submitted prior to the state or municipal, did they have you break it out into 5 quantities, or did they let you roll it up into the 4 cost elements?
No, the main 4 cost elements.
The main 4. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
But let me be specific, because what I'm talking about is specifically New York and New Jersey states where I came from. So I since I moved out to Texas, I haven't done any estimating.
Okay.
So
that's good to know. So that drives the note then that federally you're going to see these 5 for sure. If you deal with state or local government authorities, you may have either. So that's a good stipulation that I need to remember going forward, is that not all the local and states follow the same format.
It becomes complicated when it turns into the other end in cost engineering when you're on the job. And then if a job has multiple sources of funding, God help you.
Yes. Oh yeah. Particularly if your organization you're dealing with is actually the funding is split between government and private. Now
that's even worse. That's even worse.
You've got to separate your costs between just reporting as you wish and the client wants, and then the FAR or something of that nature. That gets really complicated. You earn your money when you do that.
Yeah. Start feeling that you're in the wrong business.
Yeah, you're wondering, did I make the right choice? So
right career choice.
Yes. Good conversation. All right, we're down to 2 minutes something here.
Okay.
So cost elements, the points I'll make here is that if you want consistency in your ratios, metrics, and statics, you want consistency and knowing where to find information, you need to follow the cost element structures that you're dealing with. That's the main point in this slide here. This right here is a typical industrial summary sheet. Some are more complicated, some are less. Some roll a lot of the stuff down below, up above. But I've been at least 4 of the companies I've worked with follow something very similar to this. But I've dealt with companies that they're industrial too, and they look at it completely different. But I think this is a very good representation, and it shows you the cost elements. You've got labor, you've got material, you've got subcontracts. There's your 3. And then your indirect costs and your other direct costs, they are down below in the construction indirect section. that's where it captures it. So you can kind of see how the summary sheets represent those cost elements here. Now, cost categories shouldn't be confused with cost elements. Cost elements are describing what the cost is. Cost categories now are looking at more of an activity type affiliation and less of a cost. So in other words, you can have a direct cost and it can be material, labor, or subcontract. You can have an indirect cost and it can be material, labor, or subcontract. I think we still have so much left to do. We'll go ahead after this drops us off and we'll reconnect one more time. Hate that we have to deal with this. So, but again, we're keeping these costs in these categories for the same purpose. That way we can group related items, related costs together for consistency in analyzing, for consistency in locating, for consistency in measuring and analyzing what those costs represent and what they are. So again, the kind of a breakout of what these cost categories are, and these are the world according to Mark, and also the world according to Fluor, Black and Veatch, Brown Root, and a few